No, but Rob, we're here to talk about the 49ers, where it wouldn't be a 49ers summer if there just wasn't massive confusion at some key offensive position, sometimes more than one. This year, the confusion's a little different because we thought it might be at the starting quarterback spot, but like maybe against all odds, at least those outsiders, it does appear Brock Purdy is just the set and forget starter for the 49ers, at least to begin the year. The elbow healed up very well. Brock Purdy framed it, I thought, in an interesting way that I'm not ahead of schedule. Like we just kind of like took it as it went, and it went well. Not lip service from the team. Here's Brock Purdy as the starter. But can you just tell us what in the world is going on behind Brock Purdy, between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance? Because it's a fascinating situation. I feel like it might come into play because who knows if Brock Purdy will be able to stay healthy for 17 games. Will Trey Lance still be on this roster in week one, so on and so forth?
Yeah, welcome to my world for the past 2 years, it feels like. I'll try and make sense of it if I can. Brock Purdy is the starter. They have gotten extremely lucky with everything that has happened since the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy. The surgery that he had is younger than Venmo. It didn't exist 10 years ago, but it does now. Obviously, only 2 other NFL quarterbacks have ever even had this surgery, but everything has gone perfectly for Brock in terms of rehab. And you're right, he's not all the way back. He's technically finishing up the final stages of it now. He's going to go 2 days on, 2 days off for a few weeks, and then he'll ramp up to full speed. Now, behind him, I don't know what the hell the 49ers are doing. They're giving reps to Sam Darnold for some inexplicable reason. They're giving reps to Brandon Allen, the 4th quarterback on the roster, instead of giving all those reps to Trey Lance. It is a very, very strange situation. John Lynch just spoke today, Monday, and said it's possible they keep 4 quarterbacks, although they're not really sure. So behind Brock Purdy, it's a lot of wait and see right now.
Seems like they took the NFC Championship game where they had 0 quarterbacks very hard. And now, who's to say we might carry 5? I mean, is that illegal? I thought this was America.
We're going to carry 14 quarterbacks into every game just so we don't have to start Josh Johnson at any point. Purdy, the surgery he had, like you said, is new. There was a lot of concern about his long-term prospects going forward. Has there been any indication that this has affected his arm strength, which, as I understand it, was not off the charts to begin with, but has it impacted that arm strength?
Everything the 49ers are saying right now is that it has not impacted the arm strength. All the reports we've seen from training camp, from observers, both beat writers and content creators, say that the arm strength looks like it did last year. But like you said, it wasn't exactly super impressive last year. It was just tall enough to ride the bumper cars, essentially. So that was the big worry, was that any loss of arm strength could really potentially damage Brock's career. But knock on wood, or whatever this desk happens to be made out of, it seems like right now he's okay.
Fiberglass, Rob. Fiberglass. So that's my other question about Purdy is, as an outsider, I mean, just as a football fan, a football observer, I was pretty shocked the degree to which the 49ers embraced Purdy. And it seemed like when he was watching those games, down the stretch last year and in the playoffs, man, this guy is he's running hot. There's a lot of passes that could be picked off, a lot of coin flips that basically went in Brock Purdy's favor. I think maybe some of that was borne out, the Pro Football Focus, turnover-worthy plays data, which some quarterbacks, Geno Smith has famously said is not a real stat, because it might not be a real stat, to be honest. But it just certainly seemed like with the eye test, he was running hot. There was going to be some regression at some point. How are the 49ers so convinced that Brock Purdy wasn't just running hot and that he is worthy of being the starting quarterback for a team that's one of the Super Bowl favorites in 2023?
I don't know, because we've just seen this movie, right? Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of 2017 came in for 5 games, won all 5 games, looked pretty good. They made him the highest paid player of all time. And we all saw how that ended up with Jimmy Garoppolo. They traded heaven and earth to get his replacement. And yet you could argue the 49ers are doing the same thing. Guess how many games Brock started in the regular season last year? 5. Now, he played better than Jimmy Garoppolo did, but you would think that, they would be able to see that, hey, maybe we shouldn't jump in with both feet. But I think part of it is there's an emotional component to this, because think of the 49ers season last year, right? Trey Lance gets hurt in the 5th quarter of the year. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in and you're like, all right, they've gone far with Jimmy. They're okay. And then Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt and it's hey, our season is circling the toilet bowl. This is supposed to be our Super Bowl year here. And then all of a sudden, Brock comes in and he stops the water from swirling, right? He rescues this season. We've still got a shot with Brock Purdy. So I think there's an emotional attachment to him that I know fans have. I would like to think the decision makers don't have it, but these guys are humans too. So I think that is part of this.
It seems like Kyle Shanahan falls pretty hard for his quarterbacks when he likes them. One guy he has not fallen hard for is Trey Lance, who, like you said, he traded heaven and earth to acquire and has since really just not liked him all that much. Have there been any improvements this offseason and mini camps and training camps in the way Trey Lance is playing? And are there issues with how he can conduct this offense from an accuracy standpoint, from an arm strength standpoint? I mean, what are the issues here for Trey Lance?
So the issues for Trey Lance are accuracy seems to be the biggest thing. He's been kind of scattershot in his time. He just has 262 career snaps with the 49ers. Snap, not pass attempts. That includes handoffs. That includes everything. That's how little he's gotten to play in 3 years. He still has not finished back-to-back games since 2019. That's how inexperienced he is. Accuracy is the big issue with him. He's gotten a lot of press this offseason because he went to work with Jeff Christensen, the quarterback coach of Patrick Mahomes. He worked out with Patrick Mahomes, and he does seem to have made noticeable improvements to his throwing motion and to his footwork, which Kyle Shanahan has mentioned multiple times. You know, we've heard this story before, though, with other guys, so we need to see if it actually carries over into games. But the accuracy seems to be the big question with Trey Lance. And I don't know why the 49ers seem to have fallen out of love with him. It's very, very frustrating because to me, they have a Christmas present that they still haven't opened because of how little he's gotten to play.
That's really a great analogy for it. Like, Dad, like, I know it's like a macho thing with you that you don't want to open your presents and you want to go last, but it's been literally 2 years.
But it's time.
It is time. I was so excited to give this to you.
Stop opening the Sam Darnold gift. And look at the Lance
please stop opening the Sam Darnold present. Rob, quickly, what is your sense? I mean, it doesn't sound like you think Trey Lance will not be on this roster in week 1. Is he still a 49er after training camp, Trey Lance?
I think if the 49ers got a good enough offer that they would move him, to be honest with you, with the way they've been talking up Sam Darnold and Brandon Allen. Mike Silver recently reported that the best offer they got during the draft or before the draft was a 5th-round pick. I don't think that's going to get it done if you want Trey Lance, but I don't know why in the hell anybody else would give up more than that, considering that they can read the tea leaves too and see where the 49ers are quarterback-wise. So I think that he will be on the roster. The Niners famously held on to Jimmy Garoppolo when they were supposed to move off for him. They value their players a lot more than I think other people value them sometimes. So I think Trey will be there, but I think it's a very, very real possibility he's quarterback 3 to open the year.
That seems very realistic, just like you said, the way they've been talking about Sam Darnold. Rob, Christian McCaffrey, labeled as injury prone in the fantasy community. We can debate almost literally endlessly if injury prone is a real thing or not. But CMC, he held up last year, but kind of only barely. He played at less than 100% several times. Really was like gutting things out, including in the playoffs. What are their plans, if any, you think, to manage McCaffrey's reps in 2023? And is Elijah Mitchell going to be like kind of like an actual committee member more than just like a breather back guy?
There should be plans to manage Christian McCaffrey because he is the engine that drives this offense. They were scoring 19 points a game before McCaffrey got there. And after he got there, they were scoring around 30 points a game. And that's even with Jimmy Garoppolo as quarterback. So it has not been the Brock Purdy catalyst that changed things for San Francisco. It was Christian McCaffrey. But Kyle Shanahan really doesn't rotate running backs unless he has to. If guys get hurt, obviously, he's got no choice. But when guys are healthy, he rides them as much as possible. So while he might need to mitigate CMC's reps, I don't think he's going to. And you can't depend on Elijah Mitchell for anything. That poor guy just cannot stay on the field. He missed 16 of the 20 games the team played last year due to injury. So it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. And for however many games Elijah Mitchell holds up, he'll get his chances, but it's the CMC show.
So, and that raises the question then, Rob, behind CMC and Mitchell, who will it be in your estimation at RB3? Because, man, fantasy managers desperately want to know this. Who is the number 3 guy right now?
Right now, it's Jordan Mason, who was impressive last season when he got in there. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry after contact per attempt. That would have led the league if he had enough carries to qualify. He runs hard, although he's had a little bit of a fumbling problem in camp so far that makes me nervous. And I know the 49ers are talking up Ty Davis.
No, sorry. I was saying, it was a delayed reaction to the fumbling problem. Like,
yes.
Just going to cross him off any list I have.
The Niners have been talking up Ty Davis Price, their 3rd-round pick from a year ago, but he's, he was a forgotten man last year, so he's got a long way to go. So right now, it's definitely Jordan Mason, and if Elijah Mitchell's hurt, which is a very real possibility, Mason could be RB2.
So 2 things. When you said Elijah Mitchell and referenced his health history, I was like, oh my gosh, is Elijah Mitchell hurt? And I just forgot. And he is currently healthy right now. And when Denny asked you who the number 3 was, and you said Jordan Mason, if you had said like Alfred Morris, I just would have kept nodding and going along with it, and just believed that they had signed him on like June 20th, and like, yeah, he's number 3 now, okay, and because that's just how crazy and unpredictable it is. Shanny. And we're very traumatized by Shanny's usage.
We are.
Of his running backs.
Hey, Frank Gore just signed a contract with the 49ers. Now, it happens to be in the front office, but I know a lot of people were like, is he coming back?
We have to pay attention to that. I could see Frank Gore getting a few carries by week 4, week 5, somewhere in there.
He's coming back. So CMC, yeah, well, stay healthy, Christian. Fantasy football is a better game when you are healthy. Real football is a better game when you're healthy. We're talking about the running game. That still includes Deebo Samuel, we guess. What should the expectations be for Deebo's usage, specifically his rushing usage, after the 49ers throttled back a little last year on the ground? I mean, just a strange overall campaign for Deebo. It was only 12 or 13 games. The receiving production fell off a cliff. It did fall off a cliff relative to 2021 amidst like the quarterback chaos. Just tell us what you think the plans are for Deebo as a rusher this year, and is maybe Deebo, the sense around Deebo in general after like these 2 like kind of like whiplash 2021 and 2022 seasons he had.
So I think the Deebo rushing thing is pretty much over. The only reason they did it as much as they did a few years ago is because they had to. They had so many injuries. They needed somebody to be able to make an explosive play. And so they threw him back there and it worked. But now the league is adjusted. Like they figured it out. And Kyle Shanahan referenced it because they actually ran a Deebo rushing play for Ray McLeod last year. And it went for like a 70-yard touchdown. And Kyle's comment after the game was, yeah, it's nice to do that and not see the entire defense shift as soon as we line up. So they've kind of figured out the Deebo as a running back thing. He'll still get carries here and there, but I think that it's not going to be like it was in 2021. But the good news is that Deebo, he's done his work this offseason. He's lost weight. He's put in the time training. By his own admission, 2022 was awful. He said it was awful in every aspect. He said, I'll never put that kind of bad film on tape again. He's come in shape. He looks good. So I think primarily Deebo is going to be used as a wide receiver. Now we'll see what he can do. In 2021, early in that year, he was fantastic purely as a wide receiver. You think he put up 900 yards in his first 9 games.
I think he was leading the league in receiving through 9 games.
Yes, he has shown that capability, but it all starts with him in the offseason. When he comes in shape, he has a good year. When he comes in out of shape or hurt, he has a bad year. And so far, this looks like a good Deebo year.
Just to give folks an idea of how much things dropped off for Deebo Samuel in the receiving part of the game, his yards per target went from 11.6 in 2021 to 6.6 in 2022. He saw a similar drop in yards per reception. It just all was not very good. As you know, if you drafted Deebo Samuel with the hope that you were going to get a wide receiver 1.
Denny's going to ask about the other pass catchers in just 1 second, but I feel like, at least by me, it has been kind of memory hold with Deebo, like how crazy his offseason was last year. And he was trying to force a trade. And it's easy to lose track of these things with the 49ers, and there's so much quarterback drama. But, it was this time last year, I feel like where all the talk was a Deebo trade. And maybe he was already extended by now, but good to hear he's having a normal offseason.
I did see, I'm going to move on to the other pass catchers on the team, but I did see that Deebo is sending shirtless pictures to Kyle Shanahan on the regular. And you know what? Hey, if that's the way that you have to prove that you're in shape, then you go ahead and do it. I do that with Pat, which is weird, but it's okay. It's okay.
It's not weird. I mean, I asked. That's one way we evaluate your employee performance.
That's right. You got to be in shape to talk fantasy football.
Blurbing, it's a physical grind. I'll just say
it is.
I'll throw that out
it is. No, people don't know. Brandon Ayuk, pleasant surprise last year in fantasy. I think folks are generally seeing him as the probable wide receiver 1 in San Francisco. This year, he was 21st in yards per route run among wide receivers last year, right around T. Higgins. Where do you see him falling in this offense as far as priority goes? Because we know it's a run-based offense. It's pretty conservative. Can he make the most out of his opportunities in the Niners offense?
So that's the big question. Nobody has gotten better reviews universally on the 49ers this year in camp than Brandon Ayuk. Offensive players, defensive players, coaches, reporters. Everybody says he's been virtually unguardable, that he has taken his game to an incredible level, which is the skill that I think everybody thought he had coming out of college. The problem is Kyle Shanahan doesn't ever force the ball to anybody. He can. I've seen him make Pierre Garçon lead the league in yards when he was in Washington. Like, that's a thing that happened. But I think that Kyle thinks, because they have so many playmakers on offense, I don't need to do that. If there's a week where, for whatever reason, it'd be easier to get the ball to Debo or Kittle or CMC, he's just going to do that, even if Brandon Ayuk is really good. So I think he'll be better, but I just think that Kyle is not – he's just going to have some weeks where he just goes away from him. And I know from a fantasy perspective, that's the complete opposite of what you want. So even though I think Ayuk is good and he's clearly their best receiver in the red zone, I don't know that he's going to have a much better year statistically than he did last season.
Right. I mean, it would require hyper efficiency, I think. And you know, speaking of that, just shift over to George Kittle real quick. Kittle has been frustrating for fantasy purposes because
I'm not frustrated at all about depending on him to carry my dynasty team for 3 years in a row.
And it's mostly, Rob, because we don't get points for good blocks, you know, and if we did, then George Kittle would be the first player off the board in 12-team formats. You know, they value him. It seems like the team values Kittle as a huge part of their run blocking game and even pass blocking sometimes. Is there any reason to think that changes and we see more route running, more participation in the passing game this year for Kittle, or is it kind of just a continuation of what we know from Kittle as, from a fantasy standpoint?
I have been screaming for years that blocking is still the second best thing that George Kittle does. Apparently, Kyle Shanahan is the last person to know that. The good news on Kittle is he had a resurgence last year. George Kittle caught a quarter of his career touchdown passes since Brock Purdy took over last year. His career touchdown passes. They found a real connection in the red zone. And so if Brock is healthy to start the year, and again, it looks like he is, I think that's where you're going to see Kittle perform better than he has in years past, because I think that's a real thing. But in terms of the yardage and the consistency, again, I don't think it's going to be there. And it's frustrating because it can be. We've seen it. George Kittle had 5 touchdowns last year of 30 yards or more. That hadn't been done by a tight end since the 60s. Wow. So it's there, but Kyle, again, he doesn't force it. And I just think that the red zone is going to be where Kittle makes his mark. He's still going to have plenty of those games where he's got 3 catches for 30 yards and a bunch of really good run blocks, and the 49ers win by 20.
Rob, the 49ers, again, final question. We're used to surprises. A lot of times they're bad surprises in fantasy football, you know, which Kyle Shanahan doesn't care about, and justifiably so he should not care about that. But any names that aren't even on the fantasy radar we maybe need to know about? Maybe Juwan Jennings going to take a big step forward this year? Cameron Latu going to be more involved than expected as a rookie? Is Danny Gray going to do something as a sophomore? Danny Gray was a guy I had in Dynasty. I couldn't decide if I should keep him or not for a second year. I did keep him. But just maybe a name that's not really getting much attention in fantasy circles that should be more on our radar.
I hate to be boring, but no. I would say Jordan Mason, if anybody, only because I could see Elijah Mitchell possibly getting traded or cut, frankly. Like, I don't think his roster spot is secure by any means, just because of all the injury problems they've had and because of the depth that the team has at running back. So Jordan Mason is a guy whose role could become RB2. But honestly, like, Juwan Jennings is good, but he's basically just a third down guy. You know, he had 35 catches last year, 23 got a first down, but that's pretty much all he does. Danny Gray had 1 catch last year in his rookie season.
He did, Rob. He did.
Yes. So unfortunately, I hate to be that guy, but like the names are who they are. When you've got as many guys as the 49ers have in their starting lineup, there's not really room for anybody else. So I think they're the first team to ever have all pros at wide receiver, running back, and tight end at the same time.
That's incredible. Well, Rob, thank you so much for 49. Again, complex team, maybe not so complex this year.